We are WNST. AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore Positive. Check us out on the internet. Make sure you're setting a spot on your radio dial. Make sure you're checking us out 2 weeks from now as we do our big charity week. A cup of soup or bowl begins. And that happens at Costas. We're going to kick it off at noon on Costas on Monday, the 3rd of February. I've gotten to know this guy at the real Super Bowl during my 27 years of going in and out of Super Bowl. I am wearing the old school Houston Oiler jersey, very disputed at this point. I feel a little dirty in it because I don't think they should be wearing it. And Dan Pastorini and John McClain and I have gotten together and talked about this. But when Derrick Henry came to town and this thing was on sale, McClain, $45.75 in my size, tags on, $175 retail price. And I bought it for the playoffs, and I wish we would have run a little harder, a little faster in it. But it does. There's nothing better than this jersey, right? I mean,
Well, it's sacrilegious for you to wear a Titan on an Oilers jersey.
I know that.
Oiler
I know
Oiler
that. I know
players would
that.
have been very, like Dan Pastorini, would have been very upset for you to wear Derrick Henry's Oiler jersey
I
because
won't do
those
that in
are
front of Dan.
faux jerseys.
I know. It just looks good. And I'm
It
sorry.
does
I'm
look good.
apologizing on the front end for anybody in Houston. I love the Oilers. I buy Oiler. I buy all sorts of old like NFL weird stuff because my childhood is all I have left. And you were a part of that. And all these years later, you covered the Texans. You're now at HoustonTexans.com, providing criticism from within. I hope. I know. I watch you on the internet. They run a little different down there than they run here. Your team came close and there's a disappointment. And then this team here, much was expected here. And I can't begin to tell you the thud of this for the modern era. Now, we've had, unfortunately, in Houston, the Oilers and the Texans haven't had Super Bowl. They had a Super Bowl in Houston, but not the parade. We've had a couple of parades here, but for the younger generation, and certainly for every Lamar, every Mark Andrews, every Marlon Humphrey, this is a new thing. And there's palpable disappointment here because this team felt like it was good enough. I think the Texans feel like they're getting ready to be good enough.
Well, we had a parade. It was the Martin Luther King parade on Monday before it started snowing like crazy here. And we had a parade before Christmas. You know, you guys in Baltimore, y'all have been spoiled. You had the Colts, you won championships, you've had the Ravens, you've won 2 Super Bowls. Houston has not had a team in the AFC championship game since the 1979 Oilers. The Texans, every time they've won the AFC South, they have, let's see, they're 7-2, and they've lost every divisional game on the road, including to the Ravens. And what disappointed me about the Ravens, I picked them to win the Super Bowl for the second consecutive year. I thought getting Derrick Henry would put them over the hump, that awesome 1-2 punch. And I felt, boy, did I feel terrible. Everybody did for Andrews. First the fumble, and then that drop pass. And I would he didn't talk after the game, did he?
He did not, and I wrote him a
Yeah.
letter about why that's a bad idea.
Yeah, I thought he should have stepped up and taken the blame like so many others do. But, you know, he's a great tight end, Lamar Jackson's favorite receiver. And I know people are disappointed there, but I didn't see anything from Derrick Henry that made me think he would slow down next season. And one of the things people don't seem to realize when I listen and read people talking about the workload that Derrick Henry shouldered, he didn't shoulder a load early in his career. He didn't go from a lot of carries to Alabama, stepping right in as a second round pick of the Titans and then carry the load. You know, he didn't start right away. So that's one reason I think, besides he works his tail off and he's huge and stays in incredible shape. But I think Derrick Henry's got another season or two in him. I may pick the Ravens again and hope the third time is the charm. But from afar, you know, after that 0-2 start when they were adjusting to Derrick Henry, it's amazing to me they ever lost a game. And I felt bad for him. But I don't feel bad for Buffalo because of the fan base. I feel bad for Detroit. I wanted Detroit to get the Super Bowl because of their fans. Been since the 50s. And now Buffalo's fans have been devastated 4 times in the Super Bowl. They got a chance, but I don't think it's going to happen.
John McClain is our guest. He is politely known as the General. He has been a Hall of Fame voter for many, many years, covering first the Houston Oilers and now the Houston Texans in the great snowing city this week. And I will get to the cheating in the baseball in a minute. I was going to say they won World Series there, but you know how
That's
I
so
feel about
old,
all
it's
that.
got moss on it.
It does. It has an asterisk of some kind in it, in the same way that Pete Rose's Hall of Fame credentials there. Speaking of Hall of Fame credentials, you've been a Hall of Fame voter, and you can speak to all of this. And I will hit you up on Yonda and Smith, and we'll get to whether Suggs is a first ballot, all of that. But from what this offense is, and the Derrick Henry thing, and for me, I keep patting myself on the back because the last two trading deadlines, I wrote out loud that if they had Derrick Henry, they would be, my word was unstoppable. That's the word I used because of what Lamar stresses defenses in regard to speed. I always felt like what they wanted Dobbins to be, what they drafted him to be, and he got injured and couldn't be. They needed this other running back in the way that Staubach had Dorsett, Bradshaw had Frank. You just go through the list of, I mean, Elway didn't win until he had Terrell Davis. So having that Batman with that that with the Robin and the peanut butter with the jelly and like the whole this year, what we've seen has been historic in so many ways. And I've said a few times that if Art Modell called me and David from the grave and they said, Nestor, tell me about the Ravens. I hear they got a young quarterback who's good. And I'd say, yeah, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, ran for 900 yards, threw for 4,100 yards. And oh, by the way, the running back, the only comparable in the history of the game, Art, is Jim Brown.
One of the things to keep in mind, there will be no adjustment period for Derrick Henry next season. I think the record will be even better. I don't see how Lamar can play better. He's the MVP for the third time. There's no way, like I keep people saying he's a candidate. The committee that voted him first team All Pro over Josh Allen, they're the ones that vote on the MVP. So why would they vote him first team All Pro and not the MVP? So I think it's a lock that Lamar's winning his third most valuable player award. And no, that's not enough for him or his team, coaches, fans. And I think they'll be right there next year. And it'll be from the get go. It won't be after a slow start. I'm still amazed they lost as many games as they did. I'm sure they'll make some moves in the off season to improve whatever they believe needs to be improved. But thing is, Nestor, the AFC's got so many good young quarterbacks, and some of them are not so much young anymore, but it's so competitive. You look at Cincinnati. I don't feel sorry for the Bengals. It's their own fault. They always get off to a slow start. You want to be there at the end? Quit getting off to slow starts and having to overcome them and rely on Joe Burrow to be a miracle worker. And Cleveland, of course, is terrible. Pittsburgh's going to need another quarterback. So to me, the Ravens, I'm not going to say they're going to run away with the division because if Cincinnati fixes its defense, they made a big mistake trading Joe Mixon to the Texans for a seventh round pick. He had a great season. And if they get their running game going, they could be competitive with the Ravens. But I still think the Ravens are in competition next season to have the number one seed, along with the Chiefs and the Bills. Good chance they'll get it. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of the Chiefs like I used to be tired of the Patriots. I want to see somebody else, and that somebody else would be Buffalo, but I don't see the Bills beating the Chiefs two times in one season, especially the second one at Arrowhead Stadium.
I got tired of the Steelers and the Cowboys 45, 50 years ago, and I'm
Me
still
too.
tired of them. John McClain is here. He's down in Houston, Texas. That's why I'm wearing my Houston Oilers jersey. If you see it, I mean, I know I'm breaking all sorts of codes, but it was inexpensive. It's delightful. And I said to my wife, he's going to the Hall of Fame. I got to get a Hall of Fame jersey. So I figured that would be the piece for me. Buffalo and what they're doing, and we're Kansas City. We all want to hate Kansas City this week. We all want to see Buffalo. Give me some odds on that a little bit, John. Talk to me a little bit about that this week because what I saw Buffalo do and what I've seen Kansas City do all year, Spagnolo, fourth quarter, 3-point game, 4-point game, whatever it's going to be, this is going to be a hell of a football game on Sunday night.
It should be, and the one thing I'm sure of is the Bills will be called for roughing Patrick Mahomes. Going back to 2022, officials have called five roughing penalties on teams playing Mahomes. How many they've called on the Chiefs? Zero. So it's like the Texans knew going in, you're going, and then that's not why they lost. They got lost because they weren't as good and they had no business winning and they made too many mistakes. But boy, the officiating on two plays in particular was terrible. So at some point, the Bills are going to get called for roughing Patrick Mahomes. I don't think the Bills, remember, they gave the Chiefs their only legitimate loss. They were 15-1 till they rested everybody and lost the last game. I don't think that the Bills can beat them twice. Josh Allen's going to have another Herculean performance. They've got to run the ball. They got to try to keep Mahomes on the bench if they can. It's amazing to me, Nestor, that if you look at the Chiefs, they don't have a lot of stars. They got Mahomes, and I say Kelsey. Kelsey just had the best game of the season. I didn't know he was capable of doing what he did at 35, but he did. And the Bills, they're going to go to great pains not to leave him wide open like the Texans did when they had some brain dead mistakes, miscommunication in coverage, and then missed tackles like they did. And I think that their running game, it's okay. Texans shut down their run totally, 50 yards, and Mahomes made just enough plays. And I don't think Josh Allen's going to be sacked 8 times because they have a good offensive line, not a great one, but a good one. And but somehow they win. They win because Mahomes is a miracle worker because they take advantage of mistakes by the opponents. They don't make a lot of mistakes. And I think they're going to win. I think we're going to see them in the Super Bowl, trying to be the first team to three-peat. And I think, I'm not sure whether I'm thinking Washington or Philly. Probably Philly because they're playing at home, even though Jalen Hurts has been hurt, has a knee issue from that last game. But right now, I think it's going to be Kansas City. I'd love to see Buffalo win this game. Not Josh Allen seems like such a class act, and a lot of people, he's taken a beating through the years, and I'd just like to see Buffalo. I think there'd be a magical ring to it. Buffalo Super Bowl, because what do we think about Buffalo Super Bowl losers? And I'm hoping that's the way it is, but I'm not picking against the Chiefs at home.
Well, I was in the Metrodome, and I know you were the last time when Thurman Thomas left his helmet. I didn't realize I'd be sitting 4 rows behind the two-time reigning president of the United States of America at that game, but I was. John McClain is here. He is in Houston. He votes for all things Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm about to take the conversation in that way, but before I do that, I do want to talk about your team and the Texans. Even though I'm wearing an Oilers jersey, they don't exist anymore, so I feel like it's okay. And you got your own team. And by the way, what's up with them wearing their pajamas? They had the best kits in the league when the Texans were born, and they're wearing these other things. But for the team on the field, quarterback, I think you believe they have one that they can win with in C.J. Stroud. But D'Amico Ryans and what's happened defensively there, you've known him since the day he came into the building. Now running the building, not dissimilar to Zach Orr running the defense here and really coming through the system. The success that they've had there has been kind of fast all of a sudden, because I follow you online, John, and you and I get together from time to time in Houston. It was kind of rock bottom there for a little while, right? I mean, the Texans bottomed out in a Brownsy kind of awful way and have really risen rather quickly, a lot quicker than the Jaguars or the Colts or a couple of these other teams that feel like they've fallen and they can't get up.
When I see Zach Orr, I think of D'Amico Ryans. I see Zach Orr and I watch him on the sideline, and I think of D'Amico when he was two-time defensive coordinator for the 49ers after Robert Saleh left to go become the Jets head coach. And D'Amico had a lot of offers, and I guarantee you, it is amazing to me, Nestor, how many coaches, John Harbaugh, not only him, but DeCosta loses personnel people, how many people they lose to other teams, and they still stay on top every year. It's the best run organization year to year. I know they do a better job of compensatory picks than any team in the league. That's why they're always there. And who don't like John Harbaugh? It's like everybody likes Dan Campbell. Everybody likes Andy Reid. Everybody likes and respects John Harbaugh. You pull for him. And I look at the Texans. They went from winning 4 games in 2020 when Deshaun Watson played great, and they fired Bill O'Brien after an 0-4 start after they gone into divisional round and lost to Kansas City, and then it bottomed out with all the lawsuits against Deshaun Watson, and they went through David Culley, one and done, Lovie Smith, one and done, and then they hired D'Amico, gave him a 6-year contract. Nick Caserio, the GM, has a 6-year contract, and those two have done a great job. Caserio tore this team down and started at the foundation, and the Browns helped him big time. I don't have the list in front of me, but it's amazing what Caserio turned into 3 number 1 picks and 3 other picks for Watson. They got like 6 starters, including Will Anderson Jr. was the highest, third overall last in 2023. And so that helped them rebuild quicker. They had cap money. They made sure, and the owners of the McNair family is very understanding. They give them money. They stay out of the way. They want to know what's going on. But Caserio has it. He has final say, so they don't tell him what to do. They wanted D'Amico Ryans, and they hoped that Caserio would want him. And when they interviewed him first time by Zoom, after they turned off the Zoom, Caserio turned to Cal McNair and his wife Hannah and said, "We got to get him in here, and we can't let him leave." And that's exactly what happened. So they immediately go 10-7. They win the AFC South. 3 teams had a winning record. 3 teams had a shot at the division. It was the Texans that won it. And then this year, the division was terrible, worst in football. And they won it again. Each year, they won a playoff game here. They beat Cleveland when they were 2-point underdogs last season. This season, they were 3-point underdogs to the Chargers, and they blew both of them out. Their problem is they're not good enough to beat a good team on the road, especially when they're playing in the playoffs. And it doesn't matter if it's Kansas City or Baltimore. They're just not as good as those franchises. Now, they didn't have a number 1 pick last year because they traded it to move up for Anderson right after C.J. Stroud. They got Kamari Lassiter in the second round, who was a day 1 starter and has been tremendous. And their corner is Derek Stingley Jr., who is outstanding. And Kamari Lassiter, they don't have to worry about that for a while. They have other needs, of course. And I think Caserio and Ryans make a good tandem. Caserio doesn't make him take players he doesn't want. And one of the things that impresses me the most about Ryans as the defensive play call is that he knows what he wants, position specific. And they had a great game against the Chiefs. And defensively, you take away the Travis Kelce 49-yard completion in which they left him open and then missed him on the 35 and the 30. They had 164 yards. And so you couldn't play better defensively. D'Amico Ryans the head coach. If I were doing report cards again, like I did at the Houston Chronicle, I would give him an F because he made a couple of really bad decisions as a head coach, kicking a 55-yard field goal when the wind was 17 miles an hour, giving the Ravens the ball at the Texans 45, boom, touchdown. Later, down by 8, 10:47 left, and you go for 4th and 10, and they didn't make it. Fortunately, their defense bailed them out, but it was not a good game for him as a decision maker. And that's the first time I've seen him have issues like that. But they'll be favored again in the AFC South. You know that you want to win your division. But boy, until they get a home playoff game here or shock the world by winning against a good team on the road, whether it's Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, they're just going to be spinning their wheels.
Well, taking care of business in their own division feels to be like they have 6 winnable games in their own division, which is a little bit different than some of the other divisions. John McClain is here. He's down at Houston representing down there in the midst of the snowstorm and a playoff week that could have involved the Houston Texans, could have involved the Baltimore Ravens. It does not. Will involve his Hall of Fame vote. Last thing for you, because I had to think, like, you went right down the Deshaun Watson thing, and I swear to God, I'm 15 minutes into a conversation. I want to beat you up about the Astros and do all this other. I haven't thought about Deshaun Watson in Houston, but my God, 3 years ago right now, if you and I were talking, that franchise was on friggin' fire in a way that, like, we had Ray Rice here and we had things and bad things happen and whatever. We lost our franchise. So did you in Houston. We've had really bad things happen, but pretty rock bottom to the Deshaun Watson thing. And you say Cleveland did him a favor. It is amazing that they could find anybody to take him and that it could be, from your perspective as a journalist in Houston, as a citizen, as somebody vested in the team, that it got deodorized pretty quickly there. Much like Washington got deodorized once they got rid of that clown down there.
Yeah, it was very interesting what happened with Watson. I'll never forget. It was March, and he had said after the season he wanted to be traded. And I know he wanted to be traded for the same reason J.J. Watt wanted out. They were afraid that Jack Easterby, who had wormed his way up into being interim general manager, was going to convince the McNair family to make him GM. Now, that never happened, but that's what a lot of them were worried about. And I always thought it was interesting of the teams that were seriously interested in Watson: Cleveland, Atlanta, New Orleans, and Miami. The first one he eliminated was Cleveland. And the reason was, and you know this, is the wind, not just the weather in the winter, but the wind even in August and September playing right there on Lake Erie is terrible. And the Texans had played a game that season in Cleveland when the wind was as bad as I've ever seen. And so he eliminated him. Well, Cleveland gets back together and they say, okay, what can we do to get back in the running? So they called his agent, David Mulligetta, and said, well, what if we fully guarantee a contract? And so that got their interest. So he went to Cleveland because of money. 230 million guaranteed. It looks like his heart was never in it. A friend of mine who's covered them forever said he looks like he's just forgotten how to play quarterback. And in 2020, he was magnificent and for a losing team that won 4 games. But I'm still shocked at what happened up with the Browns. It looks like they need to just have him on the bench next year. They look like they're setting the stage, Nestor, for, well, he's had a second surgery on his Achilles. Maybe we'll just have to put him on injured reserve for the year. They owe him another 92 million and then cut him and take their cap hit in 2026. But it's Herschel Walker is still the worst trade in history because the Cowboys parlayed that into 3 Super Bowl victories, and the Texans are not going to parlay this trade into 3 Super Bowl victories, and so Walker will always be the worst, but this will be the second worst. And by the way, when I keep looking at you wearing that jersey, all these great Oilers flash before my eyes, and it's a huge controversy here
Well,
about the.
you talk about it. I'm going to change jerseys because I don't want to offend you anymore. You keep going. Go
Hey,
ahead.
you already offended
No,
me.
no, no. I'm not going. I'm going to fix things.
So the Oilers, except for Bruce Matthews, the Hall of Fame guard, all those Oilers love to see Columbia blue, and I do too. And I take a beating when I'm on the radio here because since the Texans can't wear it, I like to see the Titans wear it. They've worn Columbia blue 2 times in a row against the Texans in Nashville. The Texans have beaten them both times. So
I think it's disgraceful that they wear it, by the way. Just
all
so
the
you
old
know, like I,
Oilers.
I am fully on board as a lifer Oiler fan, like lifer crazy. And you know this. I don't think they should wear it. I found this on the internet. It has Henry on a name on the back, and I'm not wearing Raven stuff because they took my credentials, threw me out of my seats. All the stuff he said about John Harbaugh, I disagree, but I didn't feel like doing that in the middle of it. So I just wanted to wear something that was supportive of the team. I have a closet full of purple stuff. I've spent millions of dollars on the Ravens, right? But the Oilers were my passion as a child. And when I find kits like this, Earl Campbell, look at how
Now
beautiful
that's much
this
better.
isn't. This this is see
Much better.
this is what I really wear when I'm really wearing stuff. But somehow this jersey wound up on the back of a Raven player with my favorite childhood team, and it was $45. Don't put me in purgatory over this. I'm a good Oiler guy, John.
Well, remember, Pastorini, every Oiler I know, other than Bruce Matthews, likes to see the colors worn by the Titans because that's the only place they're ever going to see it. I like to see the Titans wear it because I love those uniforms. They bring out a lot of great memories. I started covering the Oilers in 1977, worked all the way through the Love You Blue era. By the way, I'm working on documentaries with a filmmaker, and one of them we're working on right now. The working title is Phillips, 3 generations of coaching excellence. Bum Phillips and Love You Blue, Wade Phillips, his son, and now Wes Phillips, the offensive coordinator in Minnesota, who I believe will be a head coach So here, the Oilers are always part of the fabric of our city. They're never going to go away. And I'm glad Amy Adams Strunk, Bud Adams' daughter, has them wear them because nothing's happened, Nestor, between these two teams that make it a big rivalry. They've never played for anything like the Astros and the Rangers, and they hate each other because they
Are they going to
play
wear it every
to go to
year?
the
Is this
World
this is
Series.
here to stay, right?
Well,
They're
if
going to
they
wear it.
want to win, beat the Texans, they better stop because the Texans have rubbed their noses in it 2 years in a row.
I'm
And
shocked how many people in Tennessee wear it. Like,
well,
like it,
they got
like,
into it because they have reunions every year. All the old Oilers come up there and talk about how much they love it. They put it in the stores, they put it in their shop at the stadium. So people wear it like crazy on Oiler Day. It's been three times the last 2 years: Falcons, Texans, and this year the Texans, and they're 1-2 wearing those jerseys.
well, it's a damn good looking jersey. And
It is,
real historian here,
and
John
it looks good
McClain.
on you.
Thank you. Well, that my wife, she saw it. She's like, "Hey, that fits you. You look good in that." And I
You
thought, I hope he
do.
stays here a couple years and they win a Super Bowl because I mean, where else am I going to find? They're not making any more of these. The Oiler Derrick Henry. Nobody wanted it. That's why I got it for $45. So, John, I know Derrick Henry's going to the Hall of Fame. You already called him a first ballot Hall of Famer. Began here. You have a vote. We have Marshall Yonda, Steve Smith. I can't believe Hines Ward fell off the ballot. The Art Modell thing is eternal, and you and I and Clark Judge and Howard Ball, we've all gone through that. But of this class, Suggs, I'm assuming Suggs is going to get in the Hall of Fame. I just don't know at what speed or velocity. Can you express to folks in an elevator speech what the Hall of Fame balloting is about these days? Because it's not me running into you and Peter King all running out to pee and get coffee during breaks during the Super. It was, I've always looked at it as if you all invited me to be a part of the club, it'd be the highest honor of my life. But I've said to you and everybody else, I think I'm qualified to be in your club. I do, humbly. But I also think like it's an incredible amount of work you all do with very little love, pay, scrutiny, lots of scrutiny, not a lot of love. It's tough. But then a guy like me comes on and says, well, I think Yonda will get in. I hope Steve Smith gets in. I hope, I think he's a Hall of Famer, and I'm pretty sure Suggs is, but I never know until you guys get in the room, and I don't think you do either.
There's 49 of us, I think, and there's three subcommittees: seniors, contributors, and coaches. And we talk all year round. And when we finally get around to voting, knocking it down from like 125 people nominated, anybody can nominate. You can nominate, fans can nominate. Then we get it 25 semifinalists. The hall announces it. Then we get it down to the 15 finalists. They changed the rules this year to make it a lot harder to get in. I'm so glad on my third time last year, Andre Johnson made it. I was a presenter because he and Torrey Holt and Reggie Wayne had kind of canceled each other out. Now Steve Smith steps up and he's in that group with Torrey Holt and Reggie Wayne. And it's hard. It's hard to get in anyway. And now you can't get in unless you get 80% of the vote. Minimum three, maximum five. Of the three seniors, one contributor, and one veteran, only three of those total can get in. So the contributor could be left out, the two seniors, one senior, and they've just made it harder to get in, which a lot of people think is good. I like their old system. I think that of the guys that you mentioned, the guy who'll get in first is Marshall Yonda. Marshall Yonda, he's got all the credentials you want in a guard. I don't know that he's going to make it on the first ballot, but to me, he's the first one that goes in. At some point, Suggs will go in because Suggs was an elite pass rusher. And Steve Smith, I'm just not sure. I don't know if they put like Torrey Holt in first, Reggie Wayne second. We never go. I hear people that don't have a clue about what we do. And we have access to information that the public doesn't have. We have access to quotes from people that the public doesn't know about. And I've learned through the years, and I do think at some point Hines Ward will get in. And the wide receiver to me is like guards. There's so many, and the receivers have such gaudy stats. And it's hard for the offensive lineman. But if you've been on a Super Bowl champion and Pro Bowls when Pro Bowls were legitimate, and the thing that really is impressive, if you're on all decade team or all pro, first team all pro, second team all pro, to me, the more of those you got, the better it is. So I would tell Ravens fans at some point, I believe Marshall Yanda will be the first Raven of this group that will be voted into the Hall of Fame. I just don't have any clue when it is.
Well, that's a fascinating take on it, and I take that to heart. You've just changed my how I'm going to couch it for other folks, because I would have said the order would have been Suggs, Smith, Yanda is what I would have said. Not based on their ability, just based on the fact that it's harder to get a guard in. It's really hard to get a wide receiver in. You're telling me it's hard to get a pass rusher in at this point.
Hard to get pass rushers, it's hard to get receivers. You want people that can tell you, did that pass rusher, how did he do against the run? How did he do in pressure situations? What did his team do? What did his defense do? One of the things we have access to when the guy's off the field, what happens? If he's missed a couple of games, how do they play without him
What about if he
compared to the
sprayed
way
bleach on
they
his
play with
girlfriend?
him?
You don't consider any of that, right?
No, we don't
Jurisprudence.
consider anything off the field. And this year, one of the seniors is Jim Tyre, great offensive tackle for the Chiefs, has the credentials to be in the Hall of Fame. But after his career, he shot his wife and shot himself. And his kids have forgiven him, and they wish that he would get in based on our bylaws, which say you cannot take into account things that happen off the field. And when they say off the field, Nestor, they're not talking about in the locker room, the sideline. You got to be a good in that as well. But we're talking about away from football. That was away from football. And today, a lot of people step up and think he had CTE, but that's just, you know, people are just guessing about that. It had all the signs of it, but you don't know for sure. But he certainly has the credentials. But I'm sure some people vote their heart won't do it. So I have no clue if he's going to get in there. But I think if Marshall Yanda, who I remember and I remember other teams talking about him, how dominant he was, how physical, nasty he was. He played the position the way you want it played. And I think that, just my opinion, I think the next Raven to go in will be Marshall Yanda.
I hope so. I like Marshall. I like Steve and Suggs. Bring me in on that one. I'll have a conversation about that as well. John McClain is here. He covered the National Football League as well as anyone still does down in Houston, watching it snow down there. His team's eliminated. Our team's eliminated. We're all trying to eliminate Kansas City. Around here, we're probably trying to eliminate Washington, too, before it's all over with the Philadelphia thing's a mess. Rivalries in baseball, for years and years and years, I sat with my nose pressed up to the glass while y'all were cheating and winning championships with my Venezuelan brethren. Um,
Championship, not two, one.
well, it's tainted, whatever it is, and we can get into that. But it's ancient history. It's not here to talk about the past. Man, the Orioles are coming, but new ownership and money. And I did an hour with Luke here literally earlier today, and we were just talking about the offseason's been less than spectacular. When you lose Burns, you lose Santander. You sign the kid from the Red Sox, maybe with the bat. You sign a 35-year-old Japanese pitcher, a 41-year-old Charlie Moore. Like, I don't know, but Vegas still has the Orioles at 89.5 to make you laugh over under, which says to me the world thinks the Orioles are a playoff team.
They got so much young talent, especially hitters there. It's amazing rebuilding the same way the Astros rebuilt. Be terrible, stockpile them, and then watch it pay off. I'm
And buy some
surprised.
pitching, right? You bought some
Yeah,
pitching in
I'm
the end.
surprised that they have not used some of those young guys to get pitchers. I'm surprised they would lose a starting pitcher when you've got new ownership. And I was really pushing Anthony Santander to come to Houston as a right fielder, replace Kyle Tucker. Jim Crane, the owner here, and you can't argue with his success. They've dominated the division, and he just won't spend big money for more than 6 years. They made Alex Bregman an offer 6 year, 156 million. He's not taking it, so they moved on, and they made it. They made the trade for Kyle Tucker because they knew at 28 he's going to get a long-term deal for over 300 million. The way the money's going up today, it might be 400 million. So they traded him to Cubs. They got Alex Bregman's replacement, Isaac Paredes, who is number two in baseball as a right-handed pull hitter. And they ran graphics at the Crawford boxes at what is now Daikin Field, not Minute Maid Park, Might be Dyken Park. I can't remember. And how many more home runs he would hit into the Crawford boxes, how many more doubles he would hit. So he's not Bregman as a fielder. So they got that. They signed Christian Walker from Arizona to play first base, but they still don't have a right fielder. And no matter how much me, I, and others in the media kept saying, at least show some interest in Santander. 44 home runs, hit some big ones against the Astros, but they never even seemed to. I'm sure they talked to his agent, but that was it. So I hated it when he went to Toronto. But Astros right now, Nestor, their outfield, it's not going to stay this. Jake Myers, center field, can't hit. Chas McCormick, right field, can't hit. Left field, a rotation with Yordan Alvarez, can hit. And Mauricio Dubon, who's a good fill-in player. And for people here, it makes you just want to throw up, but they still got a lot of pitching, starters and bullpen, and they should be favored to beat the Rangers and the Mariners again. But at some point, it winds down. That's why the Orioles have to maximize it to take advantage of it while they have all this young talent they've stockpiled.
Well, we came close to maybe the Texans winning last week and the Ravens winning, and the game would have been here, and you and I would have been talking Houston and Baltimore here. Instead, we're going to have to table this until mid-August at training camp, John McClain, because the Astros and the Orioles only get together twice this year in the new balanced schedule, and both meetings are in late August. So whoever our July 31st edition will be, you will have to deal with him on the mound on the 15th, 16th, and 17th of August. Maybe I'll come down there, run around, eat some Mexican food with you. And then the weekend at Camden Yards is a 4-day weekend beginning August 21st. So we see the Astros 7 out of 9 games beginning August 15th. So, baseball schedule's different this way around. We don't see the Yankees so much, Red Sox, whatever, but we're going to get together. And I know how much. Why didn't you cover baseball for a living? How in the world did you ever get stuck covering the Oilers?
1977, I was covering the original Houston Aeros, started in 1976, and they
Arrows
asked
hockey
me,
team, the hockey team?
Aeros hockey team with Gordy and Marty and Mark Halm. That
I
was
didn't
my
even know you knew a puck from a truck. Who
first
knew?
beat. Yep, I covered them. And they asked me if I would go do a story on Bum Phillips in the off season. I did. They liked it. And eventually they put me on as a backup, and then they made me the top guy. So it's my 48th year I've just completed covering the NFL in Houston.
Well, I love you. I miss you. I miss those early mornings at the Breakers or the Biltmore and all the Super Bowls and the radio, all of that stuff. It's ancient history, but these relationships that we keep and the love of sports and the love of the Houston Oilers and look out football. Here we come, Houston.
I love that song.
I'll wear the Dan. So, what year did that song come? And did it come to Miami first? I need to know this.
No,
I knew you would have the answer.
I do have the answer. The guy that wrote it offered it to every AFL team, and Houston and Miami both wanted it at the same time, so he sold it to both of them, and they do today. Every time I hear it, Miami Dolphins, Miami
Miami
Dolphins,
Dolphins. They ripped
Miami
it off.
Dolphins number one, makes me want to projectile vomit.
Right. I want the Oiler Cannonball. I want to hear all those old songs. I'll chase Pastorini around some point here and wear his jersey as we get up into football season here, ending and baseball season beginning. It was a nice little bridge as well as Hall of Fame voting coming up next week as well. John McClain is here. Who knows? Maybe Marshall Yond will get the knock on the door out on the farm in Iowa here before it's all over with. We have a football game this week. Lucas and Owings Mills. We have baseball. We had locker clean out. We've had all sorts of things here. Lots of Hall of Fame voters as we lament the end of a long season for the Ravens. I am Nestor. We are WNST AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. Cup of Super Bowl coming up for charity 2 weeks from now. We never stop talking Baltimore. Positive.